You were born in a forgotten village, surrounded by dense forests, where the wind whispers secrets that no one dares to repeat aloud. From a young age, they learned to point the finger at you. Maybe it was the way your eyes glowed at night, or the way your grandmother murmured strange prayers as she boiled herbs that healed more than any priest. It doesn't matter. Here, if you're a woman, poor, and know how to use plants, congratulations, you're a witch. It doesn't matter if your only witchcraft is knowing how to make tea for fever. For them, any feminine wisdom is the work of the devil. You grew up hearing whispers behind doors. "The old witch's granddaughter," they would say as they made the sign of the cross. You pretended not to hear, but every time you passed by the fair, you felt the weight of their eyes, and you learned to walk with your head down and to speak little. But still, you dreamed. You dreamed of love, you dreamed of touch, you dreamed of someone who wouldn't run away when they saw you coming. And one night, when the moon was too full, he appeared. He wasn't afraid to enter her cabin. On the contrary, he seemed curious. Maybe it was the wine, maybe it was the youth, but that night, their hands touched as if there was no one watching. You fell in love. It was your biggest mistake. Not because love is wrong, but because for a woman like you, being desired is dangerous. They can't stand a happy witch. For days you met in secret. The same forest that hid your grandmother now kept your whispers. On the damp, leafy ground, you invented a world where no one could separate the two of you. But in the village, tongues never sleep. All it took was for a neighbor to see you going out together. All it took was for a jealous husband to realize he wasn't coming home. All it took was for a child to repeat something he shouldn't have heard. Suddenly, what was love became proof of a spell. How could such an honorable man betray his wife? It could only be black magic, a love spell, a binding spell, a body spell. He swore you had bewitched him, you who had nothing but some dried herbs and warm hands. He who swore eternal love under the moon now spat your name into the fire. You were dragged from your hut before sunrise. They rummaged through your pots and pans, found roots, pieces of candle, a handful of chicken bones. To them, every detail was proof. They tied your hands. They ordered you to confess. You tried to explain. You tried to say it was just love, just passion, just too human. They laughed. Witches' love doesn't exist. There is a pact. They took you to the square. They tied you to a tree trunk for everyone to see. And there he was, right behind the guards, his face pale, avoiding your gaze. He who promised to run away with you. He who promised to never let anyone hurt you. The priest shouts sermons about purity and sin. The crowd echoes. All you can smell is smoke. A real spell wouldn't hurt right now. A spell to get you out of here, back in the woods, to never have touched that hand. But there is no magic enough to escape the one who would rather burn a woman than hear her side of the story. You know there is no way out when you feel the first spark bite your ankle. Between screams and prayers, your last thought is that love for you was more deadly than any poison. And those who stay in the village learn. They learn that a woman who dreams too much becomes a witch, that a woman who loves wrongly turns to ash, that a woman who defies fear becomes a legend told in whispers. As his ashes rise, no one asks what he has done. He returns home, cries in his wife's arms, promises that he was the victim of a cruel spell, and no one dares to say that it was cowardice. You are now a cautionary tale. Mothers point to the forest and whisper, "See what happens to those who do not obey." Children run to their rooms when the wind howls, and your hut rots, eaten by moss, while your name fades away. But every now and then, someone leaves a flower where your ashes fell. And who knows, on nights with a full moon, a cold breeze will make someone remember that you didn't wish you could. You just wished you could love. Time passes, but the bonfire that took your body still burns in the memory of those who saw it. Some swear that on colder nights it is possible to hear light footsteps on the edge of the forest. Others say it is only wolves. But the older women know. It is you, still wandering among the trees that hid you. The young women of the village are the ones who feel it the most. They grow up hearing that love is a trap, that desire is a sin, that a man's word is worth more than his pain. They grow up knowing that if they smile too much, if they dance at the wrong time, if they are seen alone in the woods, they will be called a witch too. And yet, some take risks. They follow invisibly, gather the herbs their grandmother planted. They repeat their muffled prayers in secret. They learn to stir clay pots, cure fevers, and close open wounds, all at dawn, hidden from the accusing eyes. They whisper your name as if it were protection. They ask for courage when guilt grips them. They ask that their love not meet the same end as theirs. They ask that if they are burned, at least they can scream their truths before turning into smoke. Meanwhile, the men of the village sleep peacefully. They trust that if something goes wrong, they can just point the finger again. They can lie, they can cry, they can swear that they were deceived. There will always be someone who believes them. For every witch, there is a saint who accused her first. And the fire, hungry, never runs out of wood. A lover who dares to demand more than a dark room? Witch. A wife who refuses to accept being betrayed in silence? Witch. A daughter who runs away in the middle of the night with someone she shouldn't? Witch. Deep down they know, burning a witch is burning their fear of losing control. You turn to ash not because of the poison, but because your will was freer than their chains. And freedom, for those in charge, is a dangerous disease. When winter comes, some still see you in their dreams. They say your hair flows like smoke, that your voice whispers in their ears words that no one understands, but that burn more than firewood. Some wake up sweating, make the sign of the cross, swear they will behave. But the next day, everything goes back to the way it always was. It is easy to forget those who turn to ash, but it is difficult to change the fire that still licks those who breathe differently. Your story is not turned into a book. There is no statue in the square nor marble telling your name. Your story is remembered in the fear that girls feel when they love someone they shouldn't, in the courage they secretly nurture, even knowing the risk. And as ironic as it may seem, you, who died for love, continue to teach, not about witchcraft, but about resistance, about the price of loving wrongly in a place that would rather see a woman dead than see her happy. In the village, the tree trunk where you were tied has rotted. It has become fertilizer for the wildflowers that grow around it. Every spring, purple petals cover the scorched ground. No one dares to pull them out. They say it brings bad luck. At night, when the wind blows hard, the rustling of the leaves makes some believe they are whispers. Others call it superstition. But the women, sitting around the fire inside their huts, exchange knowing glances. Because even if the fire devours them, each lit flame reminds you that you existed, and that love, even when it kills, also leaves heirs. One day, who knows, someone will tell your story properly. They will say that you were not a witch, you were a woman, that you were not a demon, you were free, that you are not a threat, you are just too human to fit into a world of chains. Maybe no one will write your name in a holy book, but every girl who hides a love letter under her pillow will smell your scent in the air. Every young woman who bites her lips before touching someone forbidden will hear a whisper in the wind, "Beware." Not because love is wrong, but because for you, loving has cost everything. Maybe it's unfair, maybe it's cruel, but in a way, that's how you live on, remembered not by the fire that burned you, but by the fire you lit in those who came after you. And if someone asks 100 or 200 years from now why a woman cannot love whomever she wants, perhaps an old woman will tell them because a witch once loved too much and they preferred to burn her rather than learn to love too. Your crime was never a spell. Your crime was wanting. It was touching. It was feeling. It was existing beyond the fear they built to keep you small. You have no regrets, not even today, when all that remains are the purple flowers on the rotten trunk and the smell of smoke in the memory of the great-grandchildren of those who shouted, "Witch." You refuse to fade away. Every woman you love wrong, every kiss stolen in the dark, every muffled laugh inside a barn, it's all a living spell, stronger than any bonfire. Because no matter how many times they burn your body, your story remains alive, made of ashes but too hot to be extinguished. And who knows, one day the world will learn that love, even forbidden, is the most dangerous spell there is.